Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another Survivor 50 preseason podcast. My name is Mike Bloom, breaking down everything you need to know about the cast of Survivor 50. And today, this is someone who made quite the impression some time ago on Survivor 45, one of the standout characters of the new era, but said up and down she would never come back to play again. And production told her, can I push back on that? As Emily Flippen is back for Survivor 50. I'm incredibly excited to get into all things financial analyst Emily Flippen. And here to analyze her alongside me is Matt Liguori.
Hey, what's going on? I'm so excited, not just to be here with you, but the fact that, like you said, Emily said she might not come back, and then she is back. She's fully back here. When her name popped up, I screamed, and I haven't stopped screaming since. So I'll try to stop screaming for the rest of this podcast so that we can talk about her. But I'm just so excited that Emily is going to be there. She is such a breakout star of the new era.
Yeah, so I got to start by asking your reaction to when you found this out, because again, when a bunch of us did the exit press following Emily's boot, which was, big in its own right, we'll certainly get into it. She said up and down, like, well, listen, I'm very grateful for the time I had on Survivor. I did not realize, the magnanimity of the fan base that was involved with Survivor. Like, I'm happy with my experience. I don't want to do it again. Matt, even when I did the wish list 2 summers ago, I checked in with people from Emily's cast being like, just to make sure, I wanted to check with the people that knew her the most. She doesn't want to come back and do Survivor. They said, correct. She is definitely out of the running. Please include the rest of us in consideration. No, Emily. And lo and behold, she blindsides us. We feel like Bruce in this situation, duped by Emily Flippen of all people.
I would say I don't have a good sense of how much of a super fan of the show she is, but if there's one thing that you can tell from just listening to Emily talk, literally in her first confessional on the show, her preseason press, everything along the way, she was never someone who was like, this was like her life's goal to go out there and play the game. It became something that obviously she became interested enough in that she applied and ended up on the show. But she never made it sound like it was something that she had just truly always wanted to do. So she ends up going out, applying, getting out there and doing it. But I can understand where she's coming from when she's like, okay, so I did that. And then like, that's it. I don't need to go jump into this crazy world again. But the call comes. I mean, we know the tale is old as time, right? For people that have said that they are either retiring, for like longtime vets of reality shows, or just someone that says, yeah, I'm good. When the call comes and it's like, but do you want to do this once in a lifetime experience, twice in a lifetime? How do you say no? And we're all beneficial for her having said yes this time.
All right. Well, let's start getting into the assets and liabilities of one of our favorite investment analysts who are out there. Because when I say she's a unique character, especially compared to the new era, like this is no exaggeration. I think, especially people have arcs, especially the new era. I think it's very arc coded in its storytelling of like, you came to Survivor one way and you learned something about yourself and you left a changed person. But like Emily is one of the biggest examples of perhaps the most surprising version of those transformations, considering that, we'll sketch in the lines a bit more, Matt, in a bit, but she goes from dead woman walking, probably odds on first boot were it not for circumstances out of her control, to getting idled out with a single vote because she's such a big threat.
Yeah. I mean, that's where you have to start, right? The fact that she was almost the first boot, and not like almost in the sense that like, oh, maybe she would have gotten the votes. By all accounts, it seems pretty definitively that if Hannah Rose had not quit Survivor 45 with like the most like sure decision of I'm quitting this game, whether you write my name down or not, I am out of here tonight. If not for that, Emily Flippen is out in the first episode of the season, and we say, wow, the next time we do the first boot ranking, like she's an iconic first boot. But luckily for all of us, that was not her fate. Unluckily for second boot and great all-around guy, good friend of RHAP, worker of RHAP, Brandon Donlin, she is able to get past a second vote as well in her disaster Lulu tribe, and then just goes on to, as you're talking about, have this incredible arc over the course of the season where it's like, to simplify it, she learns how to interact with other people.
Yeah, I mean, she puts it very well in one of her many incredible confessionals where she is someone who is very numbers oriented. She has a good mind for dynamics, where people are, how to get the numbers together for a vote. But as she says tearfully, people are not stocks. And one of the reasons why she is basically on death row to begin with is because of the fact that she is a very blunt, direct person. And she was very quick to, I wouldn't say jump to conclusions, but at least air out her suspicions. In particular, in the beginning, two people from her tribe, Caleb and Sabaya, volunteer to go up on a journey. As soon as they hit the beach, I don't know what minute in the game Emily has this conversation, but she turns to two other people and says, "Can we just talk about the fact that two of them raised their hands and there was no discussion? There's probably an alliance going on there. They probably came back with an advantage." And I think Emily being so incredibly vocal about these assessments, culminating in her first tribal council where she really does step in it, showcases like all of the things not to do, honestly, in a premiere. It is like one of the wildest premieres for someone who does not get voted out first that we've seen in Survivor.
Yeah, and besides what you just mentioned about how she approaches the like gathering up people to come against the other two in Caleb and Sabaya there, the whole first episode is about how they're of course, like all the tribes are trying to build their shelter, and everybody else has an idea of how they want to build the shelter. Emily says that is basically thinking that they're like the dumbest people she's ever come across because all of their ideas are horrible. And it's funny because in the like 50 files that Brandon and Caleb did, Brandon Donlin had Caleb on as the guest, or one of the guests in Emily's episode, and they were talking about how Emily had good ideas, but she did not have a very good approach in conveying those ideas, and it was just really received by the rest of the tribe as like a lot of pessimism, and just generally they weren't vibing. It was just really like every conversation, everything that came out of one of their mouths to the other was just a clash.
Yeah, but people can find new life in the game in a number of ways. Sometimes you just need, a friendly afroed face to reach down and help you up in the form of the aforementioned Caleb. Sometimes you need a tribe swap after your tribe is one of the worst starting tribes in Survivor history. And Emily has said that when she made her way over to Bello, she really found her people, that she just always felt, and she talks about this in her confessionals, just really disconnected from them in terms of personalities. She found herself vibing a lot more in particular with Austin and Drew, and that is going to carry her so far into the game. Those are her people. She's still trying to protect Caleb to a certain extent. One of the most exciting moments of the new era in Caleb's successful shot in the dark play is made due in part to Emily outright going to Caleb and being like, "They are gunning for you. Bruce is not with you. Use your shot in the dark." She votes against him, but still obviously wants him to do it. Not unlike how Dee will take her out of the game ultimately. But, I think the narrative of like, Emily is socially ostracizing herself, she has no allies. Look, there still is some elements of Emily's blunt, dry personality that still peek through at certain points in the post-merge, but they're much more few and far between. And she feels a lot more comfortable being able to sort of like spread her proverbial wings and be herself.
And granted, tribe swap or tribe, wherever you land in your initial starting tribe, can screw anybody over at any given time. But the second that she landed on that beach with Austin and Drew, it just seemed like a very natural, like, oh, let's work together. We like you, you like us. Obviously, like the split of that group was that Emily was likely to have to pick a side between them and Kendra and Brando. So she ultimately just naturally gravitates to those guys. It seems like they're going to work well together. And throughout most of the season, yeah, it's like, okay, no, this is a person that can work with other people, whether it's them, whether it's Caleb still, like, it was a really, really rough start. But I think as you go on to see over the course of the rest of the season, it's really not a showcase just of her first couple of days of like what she brings to the table as a player. There's certainly a lot of that. And we didn't even get to the Matt chat with Bruce and everything of all of that. But there's plenty of things that you can point to say like, oh, this is someone who is a little rough around the edges and you could have some concerns about them in the social game of Survivor, but there's still plenty of other things that you can point to and say, but she's fine. She's got this.
Well, yeah, and you talk about the Bruce relationship. I mean, that is complicated to say the least. This is somebody who was the first returnee in the new era, returning in really like a lowercase r because he only lasted like 11 hours in the game. But he says on the first day in the mat, hey, now I'm in the same boat, literally as all of you. Like my expertise, my experience in the game stops here. And Emily speaks up. This is her first impression to the other 17 people. And she says like, yeah, I'm going to disagree with you right there, Bruce. I think you're bullshitting me. right now. It's something that he's going to keep to heart for the next couple weeks of the game. Emily has left that way behind. She has much bigger fish to fry. Bruce hasn't gone to tribal council. This is all he can kind of think about. And they are able to get on the same page to the extent where Emily wants Bruce out, but Bruce has an idol. And so Emily is going to talk to Bruce, being like, listen, you think you have Julie? Julie's not with you. Vote against Julie tonight, and make him so confident that everyone's turning on Julie that somehow he does not play his idol, despite the fact that he was kind of left out of the last couple of votes, and he goes. And perhaps one of the bigger foibles in her game, though, to follow up one of the biggest triumphs in her game, she then immediately goes back to camp and says, yeah, I was the one that kind of snowed Bruce into doing that or not doing that.
Yeah, and I did go back and I refreshed myself on how she felt after all that was said and done in her exit interview. She does talk about maybe I just really felt like I needed to have some credit thrown my way in the game because so much of the game had really just not been going according to her plans. She was the last ones coming, her and Caleb the last ones to come out of this disaster Lulu tribe, and just like where's the resume even beginning? So just a little bit. I think she mentions that she specifically uses the word insecurity of how she felt in that moment, that she just felt like she needed something attached to her. Obviously, it's not great to you want a resume, but you don't want to be doing your final tribal council at the final 6 with everybody still in the game to say, hey, this is what I just did. Now, granted, as you already mentioned a little bit earlier, she goes out of the game literally by 1 vote. So it's not like there was a whole consensus at the point of, oh, we're all agreeing to get out Emily. But the one person who it mattered the most that was paying close attention to Emily in that moment, of course, is Dee, the winner of the season, that is very aware that, okay, Emily is a rising threat. She just told us herself, we have to do something about this, and I'm going to.
Not to mention the fact that, as we talked about in the D podcast, she was incredibly good at not only maintaining these close connections, but keeping those balls in the air. And Emily was the hand that was possibly preventing that juggling act from continuing, right? She was, as we mentioned before, in close with Austin, with Drew, and Dee was getting nervous that down the line, maybe they'd take Emily to the end over her. So let's just cut that option out. And so even though everyone is voting against Julie, Dee is able to orchestrate a master plan behind the scenes, tell Julie, hey, again, it's almost like the exact opposite of Bruce. Hey, play your idol. Please vote Emily out. And so she's able to make that happen. Emily gets sent out with just a single vote on her name. And Jake puts it best when he says, there goes a badass right there. Yeah. And now we get to see the badass return, but a few years later.
Yeah. And I know we're going to get to this, but with the person that caused her downfall, ultimately with that 1 vote directed onto her, Dee directed Julie right towards Emily goes out of the game, and now they get to play Survivor again together. So that'll be fun.
So, Matt, over the course of Emily's incredibly transformative game, I mean, there literally is one of the most iconically panoramic scenes, perhaps, of her, of course, sitting on the sand after winning an individual reward at the sanctuary, holding a glass of red wine. But she talks about the fact that, she has learned so much more about how to soften herself. And obviously the life circumstances have given her a different POV. She says that, I never imagined I could see myself getting married. She does end up getting married after the season. So it's tough to, I think, represent some of Emily's biggest strengths, considering how the person who entered the game and the person who left are pretty different in terms of composure. But what do you think is Emily's biggest strength overall?
Well, you just said so much of the most incredible part of watching her story, literally that part of where it's not just I'm learning how to interact with other people and I'm learning the value of what the social game is necessary in Survivor, but then she starts to realize these real life things. She's talking about I never saw myself as a wife, someone who would get married, and then cut ahead, she's like, well, maybe I will. It was really an experience that opened her eyes, and the fact that we got to see that all the way through was just, again, so unique within the new era, where I think it is a complaint that at least I have, that we don't really get that a ton with a lot of characters. I mean, we get big characters along the way, but not characters like this, where it's they're on complete opposite ends of the spectrum at any given time of highs and lows of silly moments and crazy moments and personal moments. So it's all over the place. Your question was, what are her strengths?
What's her biggest strength?
Her biggest strength is her ability to literally just blend back in after she had the moment she had, right? She at the beginning of the game where it was going to send her out of the game because she just couldn't get along with people. She couldn't figure out how to communicate with the people that she had been put with. But after that was done, and honestly, I can't imagine a world where she ever goes back to that Emily on Survivor. She realized, let me just lay low, find people to work with, and just get to the end of the game by playing basic Survivor. Like, there was nothing too flashy along the way. There was nothing not flashy enough where you're like, oh, she goes out of the game because she didn't do enough. It was pretty special circumstances. And yeah, you can point to that one mistake of giving herself the credit in front of everybody else at camp. But that's the kind of thing that you can learn from this first season going into the next. So her strength overall is just that she is a solid, steady presence and player. And I would think a really good ally for anybody.
I also think she's really opportunistic. I think obviously we talk about the Bruce move as one of her crowning achievements. She will crow about it so much so, but I think something even more impressive is what happens in the last stage of Lulu 1.0, which is, again, from the outset, it seems like, and Emily will call this out at her first tribal council to her detriment, that there is this alliance of three of Caleb and Sabaya and Sean. And so when Hannah's gone and Brandon's gone, it's just her and the three of them. And in theory, that would make her, if and when Lulu loses again, she's done so. Like, that is absolutely it. But she is able to make things work. I think even the round before, she has a really creative way of using the shot in the dark when she uses it as essentially a bargaining chip, being like, Sabaya, I'll show you how loyal I am, that I am going to vote Brandon out. I will give you my shot in the dark. I will put this piece of my game literally in your hands at this moment. And that helped build some trust so that the next couple days when Sabaya says, yeah, I think Caleb's doing too much, he's too big of a threat, I want to turn on him, she could easily take that opportunity and just be like, great, as long as it's not me, I'm going to take Caleb out, I'll move into the next phase of the game. But she really saw the value in that relationship with Caleb. Also probably wanted to repay him a bit for the fact that he was helping maybe coach her through some of her social foibles. And so she turns that tribe on its head. She goes to Caleb and says, just so you know, Sabaya is coming for you. You have to write her name down or you are gone. And somehow Emily Flippen, who put her foot in her mouth and then some in the episode 1 Tribal Council, is able to successfully completely snow the power player of her tribe in episode 3 and have her go out with an idol in her pocket.
Yeah, that was a unique circumstance with that idol. In case anybody needs the refresher, it was the one where she had to, Sabaya had to melt it out of a candle wax type of situation, and she does that, like, cooks the candle wax over the fire at Tribal Council, and it's like a whole show and tell. So Sabaya is just like feeling very comfortable. I have an idol. I can, this vote's about to go my way. Where Emily's on my side, obviously. Who else is Emily going to go to? And Sabaya and Sean and Emily are just going to vote out Caleb, but Emily comes up with a plan of her own, as you're saying, and with Sabaya ultimately deciding that she was not going to cast her vote, or she didn't play the idol, whatever the situation was.
It was that you could choose to not use the idol. It was good for one tribal council originally, but if you decided to abstain from voting, it then became more powerful, and then if you did it again, it became even more powerful. So she, again, was taking a bit of a gamble, trying to go for that long-term game, only for her game to become much more short-term in the process.
Because she trusted Emily. Emily got one over on her, which was probably felt really good after the first couple of rounds that they played together. And she goes on to have Caleb still in the game, and Caleb now knows that Sean screwed him over as well. So now it's Caleb and Emily until the wheels fall off. And the wheels did fall off, but not because of Emily.
Yeah, exactly. There was more so circumstances. And again, the fact that Emily did find the people that she, A, felt more comfortable with, and B, had much deeper connections than Caleb, as the two of them were the only two members left of their tribe by the time the merge happened.
Right. So much better way to move about the game when she had people, like you said, that had those deeper connections. Caleb was just, almost dead on arrival from the second that he got to the game, let alone when he got to the merge beach.
What do you think is Emily's biggest weakness? Again, this is tough because while some weaknesses were on display in the beginning of her 45 game, they may not have been at the end. But do you feel there's a commonality that she might be bringing into 50?
So a lot of us are lucky enough to get to see Emily, not just on Survivor, but she does play a lot of, sometimes weekly, Blood on the Clock Tower over on Dwight's Twitch stream. And so when you watch her play Blood on the Clock Tower, I think you can really get a sense of, not necessarily like that this is like a guaranteed way that's going to like cause her a downfall in Survivor, but she doesn't hold back what she's thinking, and that is what makes her such a fun character. If she doesn't trust you, at least in Blood on the Clock Tower, she is going to not be quiet about that. She's going to maybe tell you to your face, and also tell everybody else in the game, I don't trust this person, blah 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 blah. So if there is any of that, look, like, it's again two different games, but if there's any game player in her that just feels that bluntness at any given time, look, Coach is going to be out there. We'll get to who she's not going to vibe with. Spoiler alert, I think Coach is one of those people. If there's anybody out there that really is just rubbing her the wrong way to the point where she can't help herself, like, yes, she has learned how to interact with people in a way that got her really deep into the game, but there are still so many other characters. Q is going to be out there with her, that could very easily just send her back into the state where she called herself, at the beginning of the game, weird aggressive Emily, and I don't think it's something that she's trying to be, but it's just something that kind of happens when you're out on the Survivor Island and you're hungry and you're this and you're that, and it just brings out some tough qualities in you, and of course it's great to learn those things about yourself, but still, if it just happens to come out at any given time, that's going to be what the weakness would be, her, if she does have that inability to really hold back just what she's thinking at any given moment.
Yeah, I think that it's weird to say impulsivity because it's not like Emily's saying, okay, I got to do this now. But I think she does have an ability to be rather upfront about what she's thinking, especially in those types of games where she's trying to deduce something. There's not a lot of necessarily filter or guise there. And so there could be some moments where, again, if she's trying to talk things through and speak her mind, that can sometimes maybe jut up against people and take them by surprise, at least. Now, I guess the interesting thing about Emily, as we talk about her perception here, is that, like, now people see Emily more. They understand her more now that they've seen a full season of her. Do you think that has the ability to catch people by surprise again? Or do you think there is still an ability to be like, whoa, where's this coming from?
I think her first season is just about as perfect as you could ask for someone going into a returning season where, yeah, there was like that one move, I guess, that you could say that was like, oh wow, look at what she did. She got one over on Bruce. But look at this cast. Like, it is filled with people who are sharks in this game. And I don't think there's any way that anyone could point to Emily and say like she is the most dangerous player here. Yeah, she's dangerous. And that's a totally fair assessment to say that she's a dangerous player, but like back it up with evidence. Show me what moves Emily made along the way that really, like, yeah, she gave her shot in the dark. She made plenty of good and worthwhile moves to get herself further in the game, but nothing I think that compares, or I shouldn't say nothing that compares, but just like there's so many other people here with like massive resumes that I think will do a lot of good to then keep her on a lower threat level as long as possible.
Well, let's start chumming the water, shall we, and talk about some of these sharks. Actually, first, let me bring up some Emily's stats before we get into that. Emily Flippen, age 31, seventh place on season 45, where she played a lucky 21 days. Again, as we talked about, went voted early, voted often, only won 2 tribal challenges in the pre-merge, went to tribal council 4 out of 5 episodes, and won one individual challenge. She won an individual reward, but it is one of the bigger wins of the season. She has this fantastic image of her like sobbing as she sinks that table maze. She has a nice girls' day over at the sanctuary. And the weird thing, Matt, goes out with only 2 votes against her. She gets a vote, I believe, at the Brandon boot, and then obviously has the one to send her home. And so that's what's so interesting as well before we get into her competition is that, like, sometimes the voting record speaks for how often that person was sort of on the bubble, on the radar, but maybe this shows the opposite, that despite Emily being in trouble early, she was largely out of people's mouths until the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think that was extremely intentional, obviously, on her part to make that be her reality as best as she possibly could have. Once she gets through that bumpy stage in the game, it was just she clicked in. She found the people to work with. She found the way to get through the game, and the fact that she only has 2 votes against, you really like you don't think that initially unless you have like the deepest memory of the season, because you think back to like the first 2 tribal councils, and you're like, how could she have possibly not gotten more than just the 1 vote that she got at tribal council number 2. But yeah, she smooth sailed a lot more throughout the game than I think I at least remembered before I dove back in here.
Yeah, if it was not for the invention of the vape pen, there would be more numbers in that last category. But this is the present we live in, Matt. And let's look ahead to the present people that are going to be alongside Emily here. So we have to start with the most familiar to Emily, and that is Dee. Now, look, even years later, I think it's safe to say that the 45 cast is one of the most like almost supernaturally close survivor casts that we have ever experienced. So like I would imagine that any sort of resentment that might have existed whatsoever, and for what's worth, Emily does vote for D. She does end up being one of the key 5 votes to give her the win in the end. I think any sort of resentment that might have come from finding out that she was the one to send her out of the game would be water under the bridge. On
By the
the other
way,
hand,
oh yeah, good.
on the other hand, is there going to be this idea of, hey, we're back in the same place. We're playing the game together once more. I'm not getting blindsided for the second time.
There's always that, right? Anybody who's back out on the island with somebody who previously played with them and previously got one over on them, you'll never convince me that any of them truly just want to go back out there and reset. And you always are going to want to beat that person that beat you last time. Now, with all that said, I do think this is obviously huge group of people, and if there's anything that these two can do to look out for one another, I think that they're going to. You mentioned the closeness of season 45. Obviously, that is the case. But one thing that I think is super noteworthy is the fact that, as Brandon and Caleb were talking about in that 50 Files podcast, they're not like best friends. It's not that they're not friends. It's just that they aren't people that came away from the season, specifically the two of them being like, they're always talking, they're always calling each other, like plenty of other people that come out of these experiences are, and like maybe even like Brandon and D are, as far as I can tell. But Emily and D just didn't seem to form that super close friendship, but when they all hang out together, vibes are great, everything is good. So it's not the kind of thing where I would guess that they spent hours and hours on the phone before the season by any means, but when they're out there again, I do think that familiarity will do a lot to keep them working well together. And it's also, just like her game, I think great for her or great for both of them, because no one, I think, can actually look at them and say they were so close. This isn't Kyle and Camilla. They were so close on their season. We have to split them up. It's like, well, they were on the same season, but D got Emily voted out. So obviously Emily's going to want that revenge, you would think. So it just, again, it feels like it couldn't be more perfect for the two of them.
All right, well, let's look at some more possible friends for Emily here. Do you see anyone that she's either going to vibe with or, try to eyeball immediately as an ally? I mean, I guess the person we have to start with is, you mentioned Blood on the Clock Tower, and Emily does have a bit of chemistry with Christian, considering the number of games that they played together. Do you think that is something that's going to just breed an alliance right off the bat?
It has to. It truly, absolutely has to. You're looking around for familiarity. You're looking around for someone that you can just connect with for any given reason, of course, especially early on in this game. There's so many people out there. I have to imagine that Christian and Emily are going to be essentially an unbreakable duo, at least for the first half of the game. Who knows how things play out or if there's any distrust that develops along the way, but they have just had so much FaceTime playing Clock Tower over the course of the past, I don't know, year or so. It has to be a good relationship.
And not to mention, I think there is this sort of assumption as well from both their ends of like, I think I know their tells. Again, it's a little apples and oranges, but I think that Blood on the Clock Tower certainly has some tenets in common with any social strategy game, right? The idea of deception, observation, etc. And so I could see a little bit of the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. I don't necessarily see them as like locking in for the end game, but who knows if they feel like it's two of, the most vocal strategists against a group of people that are gaming for, or I say gunning for the gamers consistently, then maybe they feel like they're the only sort of connections they can have. They're the only members of town against, the evil team that are the other players.
And truly, not to make this answer more boring or to make it boring, my next answer outside of D or Christian is almost anybody. I think that she can work with so many people here. We should probably, we'll get into the people that I think she might have conflict with, just based on personalities. But anyone that are not those people, I have no reason to believe why she can't get pulled in with a Stephanie, a Suri, a Rick, a Charlie, like people that are just wanting to play the game and level-headed enough are going to be a great match ally-wise.
What about on the other side of things? I know that you're trying to really cast the net wide here, but a couple fish have got to wriggle out at the end of the day. Do you find anybody who might bristle against, especially, Emily's certain way of regarding speaking her truth on occasion?
It's so easy for the top two answers on the board there, Coach and Q. I have no idea if there's been any, 45, 46 bonding from Emily to Q or vice versa. But just like those are guys with big personalities, a lot to say. They're going to have a lot of opinions. And not to the same level of character, like big character. I'll kind of throw Colby into the mix there as well. Of like, I don't know if that's going to be the most natural bond. I feel like just some of these like people that are going to come into this game with like their own really focused agenda on how to play the game. And honestly, that could even kind of put her in conflict with Suri. I don't know. I don't think that's going to be the case, but people that are just going to be coming into the game very focused on like a certain game plan. If Emily, is able to just link up with them, that's great. But certainly like the coaches and cues, it's hard to see them being like a solid, stable ally for her.
Yeah, I mean, what I am intrigued by with Emily is how much of a big threat hunter she is going to be. Like, as you mentioned, I think she is someone who is not afraid to take the shot when she feels like she has the ammunition. So, as you mentioned, she is existing on a season that has a lot of people whose reputations precede them. But does that make her necessarily want to work with them? Or is she more so like, no, we can't let Sari get far. Have you seen what happened? And she could sort of serve as like that dose of truth serum amidst the mist that people like Sari usually work under.
And if we get any of Emily of episode 1 of Survivor 45, she will call that out to whoever is around to hear it. If, we had Bruce, a guy who played, 10 minutes of his first season, say, I don't have any advantage over the rest of you. And if any of these big threats try to downplay that threat level, I could easily see a world where even if it's not as loudly as it was or as whatever as it was to Bruce on the Matt chat with everybody there, in smaller conversations, I can easily see her kind of pushing a little bit harder of the agenda of like, we can't let these big names, these big threats go deep into the game.
All right, Matt, I have one last question for you, but it is a big one. Why will Emily Flippen win Survivor 50?
I need to go back and listen to the draft that RHAP did, or anybody's draft, because if I had to guess, I feel like in any given draft for Survivor 50, I think Emily's going to get picked right in the middle. Or if not the middle, maybe like, a little earlier than the middle of the draft. I think that that's just the spot that she finds herself in as far as her threat level coming into the season. And I think I've said it 100 times already, but once she got past that part of the game that was very rough for her, she was fine. She was able to maneuver through the game, work with a bunch of different people. We didn't talk much about, not that this is important, but like her relationship with Kendra felt burned by her after they voted out Brando. Cut ahead to like the next couple rounds, and Kendra was kind of closer with Emily, and it seemed like the two of them and Drew and Austin had a bit of a thing going until Drew and Austin are like, oh, we're actually not going to keep Kendra around too much longer. But her ability to like pull Kendra back over and like form a better friendship there, I feel like she can repair things pretty well. She's had a lot of experience in having to repair her own relationships with people and just things that she's done in the game to rub people the wrong way or whatever the case is. So I think she just has a lot of different skills coming into this. And again, things that I had to remind myself were her skills, just because it's when I think of Emily, the first thing I think of is the Matt chat. That's my perception of her. That's what I think of like, I'm worried about her in the game, but then I go deeper into studying the game tape and I'm like, wait, I shouldn't be that worried. That was just one moment. And I don't think she's going to do it again, but that's the reason she could win. I think she'll be underestimated. Funny enough.
Yeah, I don't actually disagree with that, because I think that also a lot of the most memorable things from her journey are the more personal and emotional aspects, right? It is that confessional of her with the wine talking about how I think I want to be married someday. And so I think a lot has been made about her incredible metamorphosis over the course of Survivor, and a little less so about the stuff that she was tuned into, the position she found herself in, the fact that when Kelly Nalbandian gets voted out in the infamous What the Hell Guys Tribal Council, the first thing she does is turn to Emily, and Emily says, I'm sorry, you were too big of a threat. Like, Emily is capable of getting in there with that turtleneck sweater, seeming, someone who has a lot of candor, but someone who will be very up in front of your face about the way she's feeling about certain things and how they work. And then a knife slips into your back before you know it. And it turns out that Emily Flippen is the one behind it. So if she possesses those capabilities going into her second season, look, regardless, I kind of feel like we're playing for house money because, again, there exists a universe where Emily is the first person voted out this season. And it makes me incredibly grateful that not only did we get the chance to witness her through all the episodes of 45 that we did, but it also then was able to necessitate a return trip to the island as well. So regardless, the balance sheet for Emily looks in the black at the end of the day.
Yeah. Look, I also want to say for myself, when I found out that there was an opportunity that I could be the one to come here and talk about Emily Flippen, I was losing my flipping mind. So I am just so excited that she's back. I think that she is I know she's one of the names that I'm the most excited for to see out there. The journey of this one season that she had could have been enough just because it was such a full story, but the fact that it's not, I can't wait. And if it is just, if it happens to be for some reason a bad game and it's just her getting into a fight with Q or Coach, great, I'll take that too. We need those characters as well to make this season so much fun.
Well, Emily has spent a good amount of time away from talking about reality TV, but Matt, you certainly have not. You're always keeping our eyes and ears occupied on the Free Agents Network as well as on the Diary Room podcast. What do you want to plug for the listeners out there?
Yeah, those two podcasts. Check us out on the Free Agents podcast. Myself and Brian Scally currently talking about all things the Traders. We're doing 2 podcasts a week talking about the Traders, and I believe with the time frame of when this is coming out, we're talking to Kelly Wentworth this week about this week in the Traders. So that should be a lot of fun. And we're also rewatching all of the Challenge from the very beginning. So hop in with us on the Free Agents podcast, and on the Diary Room podcast, myself and Amon Adwin are trying to find the best player in Big Brother history, and we're still years away from getting to that answer, but it's a bracket style competition. It's a lot of fun. So check us out over there every single week. And Mike, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Matt. Well, next up, we continue on with the familiar trend here, a new era player who is not afraid to get their hands covered in blood, but had their own sort of moments of emotional reconciliation out there on the island. Genevieve Mushaluk making her way back from Survivor 47. And much like Emily, I think there's going to be a lot of conversation as to if the person who ended the game last time will be the person who starts the game this time. So excited to get into all that, but I want to hear your thoughts out there. Be as blunt and honest as the Emily we know and love. What do you think her chances are this season? What version of Emily do you think we are getting in Survivor 50? Only time will tell, but I know that I cannot wait as soon as 8 o'clock hits on February 25th to see the very first thing that Emily Flippen says on that mat, because you know it is going to be gold. Thank you all, as always, so much for listening. Matt, thank you for your fantastic insights. Until next time, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.